This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Tuesday, April 7th. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, even as the U.S. passes the milestone of 10,000 coronavirus deaths, there are growing indications things may soon start looking much better as President Donald Trump again promises there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Will the final death toll from the coronavirus be as high as some models have predicted, running more than 100,000 or more? We're going to hear what a top government official says, as well as our own medical reporter, Lori Johnson. The coronavirus has exposed how the U.S. depends on China for so many prescription drugs. We're going to hear what top experts say needs to be done about that. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announces a complete lockdown of his country. And we're going to bring you a report from Jerusalem on how that will affect this year's Passover celebration. All those stories and more are ahead in today's edition of Newswatch. I want to begin this hour with some fresh evidence the worst could potentially be over for the coronavirus outbreak in the weeks ahead. President Donald Trump again saying, though, the next week or a little more will be tough. There's tremendous light at the end of the tunnel. And in New York, the epicenter of the U.S. outbreak, the number of hospital admissions, deaths, and ICU patients is down for the third day in a row.
Those are the kind of good signs that you look for. You never even begin to think about claiming victory prematurely, but that's the first thing you see when you start to see the turnaround.
The director of the Centers for Disease Control told a Tucson radio station he believes the projection of the U.S. death toll could be much lower than expected. And a University of Washington model now predicts the peak of the outbreak is coming as soon as April 16th with a death toll of 82,000. While it is a respected model, it varies from others, and federal aid state leaders are still preparing for the worst. Vice President Mike Pence says social distancing is working.
The initial data, what we've seen in California and Washington, support the fact that the American people are doing these things, which is nothing short of loving your neighbor.
But New York hospitals still overwhelmed, and New York is extending its stay-at-home order until the end of April, with fines doubling for not social distancing. In Britain, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to the intensive care unit of a London hospital after his coronavirus symptoms worsened. But aides say he is conscious and does not require ventilation at the moment. But in Europe, news that Italy and Spain are also seeing numbers drop has some optimistic the worst may be over. And stocks keep rising sharply as investors saw hope the coronavirus outbreak could be slowing. And our medical reporter, Lori Johnson, joins us now. So the head of the CDC says that the death toll will be much lower than projections we've heard because Americans are practicing social distancing. You agree with that assessment?
Absolutely. And I'm not the only one. Yesterday, the White House Coronavirus Task Force talked about that lowered number as probably more likely in the days ahead because people are practicing the social distancing and the social isolation. And really, there was a question about whether this entire country of 350 million Americans could really get it together and do it. And we are, so we should be celebrating that, but not getting that false sense of security. I liken it to we have to lose 50 pounds and we've lost 10. So that doesn't mean we can go off the diet. We still have to keep on it, but it's very motivating to continue to go forward. And a lot of people are saying, but wait, those models said 100,000 to 200,000 people are going to die. Why are you now saying maybe between 80,000 to 120,000? And it's because now there's new data being administered into these models. And that's what those models were based on to begin with, was data. And now we've seen data over the last 3 weeks that shows Americans are not going anywhere. And that's fantastic. So but the thing about the models, a lot of people at the news conference were like, wait a second, you said this is going to be the worst week of our lives. And yet, on the other hand, you say things are getting better. And it's because there's about a 2.5 week lag between what we're doing now and what we're going to see. It usually takes about 2.5, maybe a little bit more time of when a person gets infected and when they enter the hospital, ICU, and sadly, in some cases, death. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Fauci said we are never going to be normal again. What does he mean by that?
Right, I know. It's true. He was talking about in the short term and really in the long term, too, Ephraim, because when you think about it, I don't think any of us is ever going to be the same. I don't think we're ever going to be this, to not sit next to somebody, at a sporting event or be on a crowded subway and not think about all the germs. I think we're going to be washing our hands and doing all kinds of things forever, and that's a good thing because it's going to prevent flu in the years ahead. But in the short term, when he talks about maybe after we see 2 weeks of no new cases, that might be the signal that we can start going out again. And people who have tested positive for the antibodies might be the first ones. And we still might be practicing social distancing and still wearing masks out in public for many months to come. He said that when we will completely get back to normal is when we have a vaccine. And as you know, that's going to be in about a year. It might be a little bit sooner. They're saying that it takes so long to manufacture the vaccine, sometimes up to 6 months, that before the vaccines are actually approved, they might start manufacturing them anyway, that when they are approved, they will have the stockpile.
Very important, very important. Hydrochloroquine has worked for some people as a treatment, but does it mean that if you take it when you're healthy, it could prevent you from getting the coronavirus?
Yes, and we've seen this in some sub-Saharan African countries where people take this malaria medicine and then a lot of scientists are like, hey, wow, that's weird. They're not getting COVID-19. So it actually is a prophylactic, as they say. It can prevent, although health officials are warning people against taking it prophylactically because even though there are millions and millions of doses, we really like to save those for people who are critically ill, although there are some exceptions, such as healthcare workers who some can and are taking it prophylactically so that they don't get sick when they're treating all of these infected people.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Lori. Much appreciated. The COVID-19 virus has exposed a number of things about the U.S. and China. One is how America depends on China for prescription drugs in a major way. What's been an underlying concern for a couple of decades now is coming to the surface. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips brings us the story.
Over the last 20 years, the U.S. has outsourced much of its drug manufacturing to China. Now, the lower cost made it seem like a good idea at the time, but now, in the middle of a pandemic, the U.S. could find itself at China's mercy.
This is very hidden from the American public. It took me 3 years to figure this out.
Author Rosemary Gibson wrote China RX 2 years ago. In it, she chronicled America's over-reliance on China for generic prescription drugs and pointed out a potential result of that dependence.
And that prediction was in the event of a natural disaster or a global pandemic, if China shuts the door on exports, on sending us these important products, the United States could end up standing in line with other countries to get these core components for our medicines.
2 years later, COVID-19 is rocking the world, setting the stage for Gibson's warning to possibly come true.
We have production shutdowns in China because people were not going to work. Transportation routes and logistics have been disrupted.
Right now, we buy generic drugs from China for numerous conditions, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes, high blood pressure, HIV/AIDS, depression.
We can't make the generic antibiotics that mothers give to their children for ear infections or that you take for bronchitis or pneumonia.
Gibson says that's because China controls the core chemicals to make them. She says China makes 10% of our generic drugs, and with that amount growing, they could soon name their price.
Our dependence will be total.
It's a problem so serious, Gibson recently testified, along with other experts, on Capitol Hill.
There's no question the coronavirus is causing a concern on our supply chain on drugs. That's a fact. And we need to be able to have domestic productions. That's a need.
A need that could lead to a solution.
We have to bring our ability to make our medicines back home. We have some tremendously talented, innovative people in this country, and they want to start making medicines in a quicker, faster, cheaper way.
Gibson pointed out, however, that companies will need government backing to get it done. Otherwise, China will undercut them.
What the medicine dependency of the United States on unreliable and probably dangerous Chinese suppliers represents is a microcosm of what the Chinese have been doing to us for decades.
Gibson says COVID-19 has provided a costly wake-up call that was necessary.
It's become real. It's not theoretical. This is real. And so this is a motivation for us to fix it.
The other issue is quality control. Gibson says some of the medicines from China have either been contaminated or not contained any medicine at all results that do not bode well for the American consumer. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
And stay with us for the latest on the coronavirus as we provide updates on the CBN News Channel and at cbnnews.com. Coming up, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced a complete lockdown for his country during the upcoming Passover holiday in order to control the country's coronavirus outbreak. We're going to bring you a look at how that's playing out when we come back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
Yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Jewish people in Israel and around the world celebrate the biblical holiday of Passover with a festive meal called a Seder. But as CBN's Chris Mitchell shows us, with Israel under lockdown, this year's won't be exactly the same.
It's usually a big, multi-generational celebration. Family and friends gather together for a meal and recount the Exodus story of how God delivered the Jews from slavery in Egypt.
Passover is a memorial, and it's a remembrance of God's act of redemption on behalf of the Jewish people to bring them out of slavery, bring them into the Promised Land, in fulfillment of his promises to Abraham and fulfillment of his covenant.
This year will be different as the world deals with this real-life plague known as COVID-19.
A small Seder is a safe Seder. This year, more than ever, we will adopt the Passover festival of our forefathers in Egypt, Passover in houses.
In Israel, only people living in the same house are allowed to sit down for the Seder together, so many will be alone.
This year, on the holiday, people will be separated from one another. It's a holiday that will be the opposite, but it also teaches us that the Holy One also loves each one individually.
We're going to be huddled together in our homes, in isolation, socially distanced from the world around us, just like they were in the time of the Exodus from Egypt.
That prompted rabbis to ease decades-old rules forbidding use of electricity on the Sabbath and holidays in order to allow Orthodox families to enjoy Seders via Zoom.
You got grandpa or grandma by herself when she should be with her children, her grandchildren, even in my mother's case, in my parents' case, their great-grandchildren. So because of the fear that it could be very dangerous psychologically, even physically to these people, the stress could kill you.
Other rabbinical rulings have also been changed, like burning the last bit of chametz or leaven outside just hours before the holiday begins.
I remember I've been here in the Gulf War. I remember you had to walk around with your gas mask, similar thing. And if the siren went off, you ran for cover, but life went on. Yeah. This is unlike anything. Everything is just shut down.
In the biblical account shown here in CBN Superbook for Children, the plagues are listed: blood, frogs, lice, cattle disease, pestilence, boils, hail, locust, darkness, and death of the firstborn.
Every plague actually is dismantling of one of the gods of Egypt.
What saved the Jewish people from the last plague was putting the blood of a spotless sacrificed lamb on the lintels and doorposts of their homes.
In Exodus chapter 12, we see the final plague, where God says to the Jewish people, he says, go into your homes, isolate yourself, do not leave your house because there's something bad outside.
Boaz Michael from First Fruits of Zion sees similarities to this today.
We're now being told that we have to stay in our homes because there's something essentially bad that will harm us outside.
Near the beginning of every Seder, the youngest child traditionally sings the question, Ma nishtina halayla hazeh? What's different about this night? No doubt this year's answer will be remembered as very different for years to come. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, the coronavirus outbreak has disrupted lives all across the country, including college students. We're going to hear from a Christian college president, who has some ideas about how students can thrive during this difficult time.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel. Now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
A college president is out with a new book on making the most of your college years. He wrote it, of course, not knowing students will be facing COVID-19. But he's explained to CBN News' Wendy Griffith recently, the book is actually still a great guide for students with ideas that can help them thrive in the middle of the coronavirus disruption.
Biola University is a Christian college in Southern California that has shifted to remote education. And joining us now is their president, Dr. Barry Corey. Dr. Corey, thanks for being with us.
Wendy, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You wrote a book Make the Most of It is the title, I believe. It's a guide to maxing out your college years. You, of course, had no idea that students across the country were about to have their education disrupted when you wrote it. Tell us what it's like for students going through this time.
Yeah, well, yes, I did not expect this to come when I wrote the book. The book is just actually coming out this month. So, so Biola has shut down, like virtually every college campus in California. Our students have, by and large, gone home unless they have no home to go to or other extenuating circumstances. And there are some students left on campus, but our students are home. They're studying remotely. We're stepping up the game, and our faculty have been heroic during this time. We had the infrastructures in place to make this much more manageable, but we didn't see it coming. And so my encouragement to students is discipline yourself during these times of your life where there are major disruptions in order to instill in yourself the kind of habits you need for any circumstance that comes your way.
That's a good word. Well, you write in the book about anxiety in normal college life. You know, let's say anxiety times 100 now is what they're probably going through. What is your encouragement to college students right now who are wrestling with anxiety? Well,
I think like the best practical advice that I could give, and it actually is embedded in the book as well, is to structure your life around some really healthy rhythms. And I was on the phone or a conference call this morning with a bunch of journalism students in their class, and just told them it's easy to let things go during this time, to go to bed whenever you want and take naps and sleep in and just kind of maybe go amok on social media and put your class off. So I said, like, discipline your class time. If your class is being offered online but maybe not live, take that hour-and-a-half period twice a week to study that chemistry class. If you need some recreation, write it into your schedule. Go on a hike or read a novel or stream a film or bake bread or go on a long bike ride, whatever it might be. Schedule that time in. And sleep really matters now more than ever, I think, during stressful times, to have a set time to go to sleep and a set time to wake up in the morning and a time that you're going to be actually socializing with your friends. Schedule that in and stay connected so you don't isolate yourself or stagnate alone at home. And so there are patterns, healthy habits of the heart and patterns that right now during this time of disruption, students need to live into even more.
Some leaders in higher ed wonder about the long-term impact of this pandemic and social distancing on education. Dr. Corey, what are some of your thoughts? Could it shift how we view online education? Might it prove financially disastrous for some schools and for some students?
Yeah, I think college presidents across the country right now who are saying, like, I can't wait to get back to normal, I think that's the wrong approach right now. I think our question is, what is the new normal? And how are we learning from this disruption? How are we pivoting in a way that this becomes not something that we live through, but we learn through? Because I do think things are going to be changing dramatically in many of the sectors and industries, and certainly higher education is one of them as well. I do feel that residential higher education is something that we hold as precious, and that is going to continue on for as far into the future as we can see. But I think there are going to be some adjustments to that and ways in which students are thinking about augmenting their education hybrid in ways that it might not be like we've seen for generations now. But we need to be prepared, and we need to be thinking through that as boards, as trustees, as administrators, as faculty. Like, how are we living into the new changes that are inevitably going to come from this major disruption that we're facing?
Dr. Barry Corey, president of Biola University in beautiful Southern California, thank you so much for your time. God bless you and all your students.
Thank you, Wendy.
Coming up, as churches across the country are closed because of the coronavirus outbreak, we're going to show you how one megachurch in Oklahoma is offering practical help and hope in a time when many need it most.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Efrem Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back. As churches remain closed due to COVID-19, one megachurch in Oklahoma is offering practical help and hope in a time when many need it. Victory Church in Tulsa has been holding drive-in services with the pastor preaching from the rooftop to thousands parked in their cars. In partnership with small businesses in the area, the ministry has also fed more than 50,000 families who've fallen on hard times due to the virus.
We have small business owners who are giving up their monthly salary and their paychecks to pay for people to have food right now. 53,000 hot meals and groceries to people who are laid off from work, reduced in their hours, and they're saying, if you guys weren't open, we don't know where we would go right now.
You can watch that interview this evening on Prayer Link. It begins at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time on the CBN News Channel. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. Here's a thought I pray will encourage you, and perhaps you will post, tag, tweet, and share it with those who follow you. Search your short and long-term memory, and you will see the hand of God at work in your life. He is never absent, but we don't always make or take the time to see him. With that word, I encourage you to make today a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. The email address is right there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And, of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We've enjoyed your company. Hope you'll join us again right back here next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.